That was a terrible idea.
I legitimately didn't know that until this moment.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Narratives and Nonsense, where friends talking about random and recent stories, newsworthy or otherwise. I'm Jordan. You can call me Gillidan. This is Connor. Connor, do you have a other preferred name?
Nope, just the one that I got.
There it is. So, uh, what is this? What are we doing? Why are we here?
All great questions I have not a single answer to.
Ah, good.
I believe this is a podcast. I know, because we needed one more of those in the world.
Yeah. Another one doesn't
Much
hurt.
like, yeah, it's like more COVID cases, right? We just get better at treating it.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Obvious.
So, what is the purpose of this podcast? Why the two of us as opposed to somebody else? Um, I have known Connor for a solid chunk of my life at this point, and we're good buds. We like talking to each other. We need an excuse to hang out, enjoy each other's company, and have a little bit of creative outlet. And what better way than I would say getting together to make a podcast and have it be about narratives. So we'll start there. What is a narrative? Any kind of story. It doesn't matter if it's in real world, if it's in a movie or show, and that's kind of where we got to today. So a little bit of variety, but overall, we do want to focus on what kind of stories are happening, fictional or otherwise. So Connor, talk about yourself. So who are you? Where are you now? Where did you come from? Where did you go? Cotton Eye Joe.
Well, unfortunately, I am not Cotton Eye Joe. Big letdown for many there, I'm sure. Originally, I was born in the States, Colorado to be particular. Like, I don't even know how long anymore. 7 or 8 years ago, I guess, I moved to Canada. That was great. It was
It was
for
a
my dad's
terrible
job.
time. I was sad the whole way through.
Yeah, it was actually just pretty awful. And then it was even colder than Colorado, so it was like great. Big
Yeah.
upgrade there, but make what you can of it. Keep in contact with your buddies.
Oh yeah. No, and to be fair, like it's not all been bad. You've had a good time for
Oh yeah.
both college and otherwise up there, and
I was what he's saying is I was a bit of a dummy at some points in school, and I kind of turned it around when I got up here. So
he's not
everybody was like,
wrong.
"Thank
I wouldn't say
God."
he is a dummy. I would say he was a slacker. between the two of us, we met each other in middle school. We went to different high schools, and then he moved to Canada, and from then on, I will forever hold it against him. But I also am from here in Colorado. I'm still here. I've traveled a bunch, but I primarily reside here in the great CO next to the mountains on the Front Range. And I went to school for. I went in as a chem major. That was a terrible idea.
I legitimately didn't know that until this moment.
Oh God, no, Connor. I went in as a chem major. It was a terrible decision. It took less than a quarter for me to go, okay, yeah, screw that. Nope, not doing that anymore. So afterwards, I bumbled around. I almost minored in comp sci, and then I focused on theater and business administration. So,
It went from better to like a little shakier.
yeah, but I did enjoy it a lot more than chem. I can't do lab work. That's my problem. So
Really?
yeah, it's it's weird because I feel like it would be really fun to do lab work, but I hate all the paperwork behind lab work. Like I'd rather just go into a lab
I
and start
see.
blowing things up
Ah,
or mixing things and finding new things. I don't want to measure how many ounces or grams
yeah.
of items are going into this concoction of craziness. I just want
Make
to blow
sure you
shit up.
stir it as you heat it. And
Yeah. Yeah, I care less about the process and more about the outcome. Um,
Well, some cool shit to happen.
yeah, so that's a little bit about me, and then in short, this entire endeavor will essentially be us talking about some of it about ourselves, some of it about the news of the week, since every week there's always new narratives that are running around. Um, and then after that, we'll talk about more entertainment type stuff, so movies, shows, video games, things like that. And then we'll leave with whatever plugs, uh, and if we had any like projects that people might be interested in that are worth exploring. So now that we've kind of dove into ourselves and where we're from here in Colorado, uh, I think going into the first news of the week is just this last week, leading into the brand new year 2022. What a way to kick it off! Here in Colorado, we had a massive fire on the Front Plains. Now, normally, when it comes to fires, that's something that we're not necessarily new to fires. It's just fires are usually up where like there's a lot of beetle kill, all the dead pine trees that are up in the mountains. That's usually where we hear about fires. But Connor, what set this one apart?
Uh, well, it's it's not like there's no brush fires, like certainly are, but
Yeah,
usually we're better about controlled burning them and stuff. Um, I think the big thing about this one was there was a very wet spring apparently, so a lot of the grass was a lot taller than usual, and I guess something caught. I don't actually really know the initial source. I know it was a bit of a
yeah.
small brush fire at some point.
I think
I
they're calling it the Marshall Fire. I don't know why, but
hmm,
it was something where normally this kind of stuff is kept under wraps. But what really I think set this one apart was we've had nonsense wins the last week,
hmm,
honestly, couple of weeks. Like uh, going into the start of December, we've just been hailed on, tormented with just I don't even know what kind of speeds, but it was something where uh, there's light poles and stuff falling over, and I think right
ooh,
now they believe the start of the fire was um, a power grid line had like fallen over and sparked,
ah.
and that's what kicked it all off. But
That's
what's
what I was wondering is what got all that going.
Yeah, but the fallout from that is because of just how crazy the winds were. It's something where they couldn't really address it because what are you going to do? You're going to spray the water and it just kind of flies off into the wind, and you can't drop anything because same problem, it just flies off in the wind
Sweet.
if you can even get close enough with a chopper.
Yeah,
So this fire
in a windy
basically,
condition, which
yeah, it basically just went out of control and stormed through the northern section of I don't want to say northern part of Colorado because I think that sets a weird precedent. It's the northern part of like the main Front Range, so I like to say extended North Denver, just outside of Boulder,
oh, oh,
is where that was, and it went through and it burned. I think the numbers are around 600 homes and a hotel. I mean, it was crazy. Um, if people want an idea of like how close to home this kind of stuff is, my parents are a little bit south of that. They were put on pre-evacuation notice. My friend John has an apartment like over in that same area. He was put on a pre-evacuation notice. He was like setting alarms to wake up randomly throughout the night to make sure that he didn't need to evacuate. My work got
holy.
evacuated partway into the day. Thankfully, it's untouched. We had our boss went into the office just to like check on everything on Friday, and he said everything was smoky, and they opened it up to let things air out. But otherwise, the building was intact. But people in the office, literally, the power was going out. I've worked remote for basically the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, so it didn't affect me directly. I'm far enough that I didn't really like directly get affected or care, but um, it was pretty scary stuff. I mean, There's a Target and a Costco that lit on fire. I don't know if it's burnt down, but I know it caught fire. That I've been to and from multiple times. I mean, it's the commute between basically my home in Boulder, and that's where my sisters went to school.
Mm. Well, and I know in particular, I think it's Superior, Colorado.
Yep.
This little small town, like 600 homes got destroyed, and it is scorched. I was watching on the Rocky Mountain PBS. They have a
Mm-hmm.
YouTube channel. If you want to know more, they got a video on it there. But it is scorched. The cars don't have tires or anything. All the paint, the window is like
Yeah.
exploded out. Like it just looks like a wasteland.
It honestly it reminds me of some of the old footage or pictures of like post Hiroshima type stuff. Now, granted, is
Yeah,
this on the same scale? Absolutely not. But
no. The
the
devastation is
visuals
there
of it,
though.
yeah, where like the only things that are left of buildings are like fireplaces that are built of red brick, like,
Yeah.
and that's it. I mean, it's crazy.
If
Um,
you've ever seen Stakeland, it looks like that.
yeah, I mean, it was something else, and then uh, gosh, what else? I mean, it's it is pretty terrible. I know through our work, I work with a company called Zero Shoes. If there are people that are directly affected and that are having trouble or were affected by the fires directly, you know, if their livelihood, if their homes were burnt down, I know that we're looking to donate shoes. So if you happen, a listener, if you happen to know
Nice.
anybody, like, let me know, and I'll pass it along because that's something that um, it's a little close to home. It's a little scary.
Yeah.
um,
Well, and it's like at this time of year, like it started just before New Year's ish,
yeah, yeah, and what's really both
after a
tragic
rough
and ironic
Christmas.
with it is um, the fire started like a midday Thursday, yesterday, Friday, New Year's Eve, today being New Year's Day. So this is 2 days ago. This all took place on that Thursday. You know, all the evacuations and stuff. The fire burned throughout the night. The wind started to die down, and that's when they were able to like get things properly under control. The next day, yesterday, New Year's Eve, we get dropped like 3 or 5 inches of snow. Talk about unfortunate timing. Now, it did help from what the newscasters were saying. It did help with putting out some of the fires, but dang it, like if it were there 2 days earlier, that might have made such a big difference. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
and it's been
seriously. Like,
it's been a dry winter. We have had hardly any rain or snow this entire time. Usually with Colorado, I mean, it does what it wants. It'll drop like 1 or 2 inches and then it'll be gone the next day and then drop another 1 or 2 inches. Like we've had no proper snowfall up until yesterday, and that's
and
when it finally came in.
well, and up north, it's been pretty cold right now, but it's January, so that's not shocking. But
Yeah.
up into December, it was honestly like seasonably hot
Mm,
for Canada.
yeah. I
It,
mean,
it
it's
was weird.
what a fun year, especially compared to last year. Because I feel like last year, I mean, there was just torrents of snow, like proper buried in, couldn't leave the driveway type stuff.
Yeah, I think it was actually worse for you guys too. Like you guys got snow before I did
Yeah.
last year.
No, it was weird. Good old
Yeah.
weather.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't get away from it for too long. January's still about the same as always.
Hmm. No, absolutely. Well, um, outside of Colorado stuff, we are in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
This
Are
is a
we ever?
fun topic. So, uh, we went to Mexico as a family trip. This is our first time ever doing a family vacation of sorts because all of us are college age or up. It's myself, my two
Mm,
sisters, my mom, and my dad, and then my
really
sister's
enjoy it.
boyfriend. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was really, really fun. We were in Mexico for 5 days, and then uh, myself, Brianna, and her boyfriend, we flew back at our like regularly scheduled time in order to come back from international. The U.S. requires that you have a negative COVID test and that you don't have to like quarantine or anything. If you do get a positive test, you have to stay where you are for 2 weeks. I mean, a little stressful, but we tested negative. We came back, had no problems. My mom, my dad, my sister, my other sister Taylor, her boyfriend, the four of them ended up staying an extra couple of days. They paid to just spend the full week out there
Yeah.
before coming back, and then I went and picked them up from the airport. In the like couple of days afterward, it's the 23rd is when they got back. 24th, Christmas Eve. Um, Brianna's boyfriend's not there, but the rest of us get together. Christmas Day, everybody's there. Taylor and her boyfriend leave a little bit earlier to go to his family side of the thing. And then Sunday, Brianna's not feeling good. And either Sunday or Monday, she tested positive with COVID. So, literally, in the 4 days since getting back from Mexico, she caught it. Now, I believe we think it's Brianna's boyfriend's family that may have had COVID because there's that period
Yeah.
of time where Brianna's boyfriend Jacob wasn't there. Uh,
Mm,
so that's where we think it is. If it's not something completely tangentially
yeah.
offhand, like they got it at the airport, which is hopefully a no. I mean, they went straight from Mexico to DIA while I had a layover in Dallas. Like
Mm,
they
that's,
had less time in an airport to like catch it from something
yeah.
randomly. So
I mean,
that
but
was
who
it for
knows?
me.
It's a bitch of the world.
Oh yeah. Um, but since then, Brianna wasn't feeling good. She's been better, and then, uh, like two or
That's
3 days
positive.
ago, myself, my other sister Taylor, and my dad, all three of us are not feeling great. I know for me, I've had chills, I've had aches. My throat is like a little bit rough. I've had some coughing, not a lot though. It's a shallow cough. It's more like I have a tickle and I have to get rid of it. Um,
Mm.
that's been the extent of my experience as far as being sick. And then
How's your throat doing? Is it sore at all?
throat's okay. Um,
That's good.
going into this week, like when we got back from Mexico and all that, my nose was runny, which it I don't believe a runny nose is on the list of the different symptoms for COVID, but
Yeah, I don't
congestion
believe so.
is. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit weird. And that was before she tested positive. Was we had like runny nose and stuff. So is that something where we were sick just from like common cold thing, and then we got COVID as an aftershock,
Mm,
or
because it was like trying to deal with the cold thing.
yeah, like my body's dealing with one thing and then something else came in. The other thing that's more concerning with it is all of us are vaccinated, and that's
Yeah.
both of the main shots. Um, and yeah, we're still getting sick. So whether or not it is COVID, that's the part that's hard. I know. Going by like the days, it'd probably be 2 or 3 days after my sister got it that I did a rapid test, and it came back negative. But now that I'm actually feeling sick, uh, I want to go get another test just to confirm one way
Yeah.
or the other. How that's gone is I called out of or I clocked out of work early to go get a test, and this happened to be the day of the fires, so all of the smoke that's billowing and all the wind that's going around,
Ooh.
the COVID testing sites were shut down due to weather, and then the day after it snowed, and today it's New Year's, so it's a holiday and no one's open. So
Yeah.
I don't know when I'm gonna get tested or if I'm gonna get tested timely enough to know whether it is or isn't COVID. So that's been
Yeah.
fun. Um, but I'm not the only one that's a little sick too, Connor.
Yeah. Honestly, mine's a little bit like unfortunately no international travel, but mine's not too dissimilar. Um, I don't know it. So, or actually, I do. Sorry, I should go back to this. So it was about I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah,
I work for a garage door company. I don't really want to say where, just because where I'm at is it's pretty limited. So for Jordan, it's a
doxy.
little different because yeah, there's a bit more people in Colorado for you to sort through to find Jordan.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that's
but
true.
anyways, I but literally I install and do maintenance on garage doors. It's a great job, let me tell you. But my lead hand, so the guy, my supervisor, he's the one who drives me around in the truck and tells me what I'm doing and all that kind of stuff. He didn't show up for the first couple hours of the day, and I didn't know why. So I was just working in our warehouse, and eventually he did, and he told me that he'd been driving around trying to find a rapid test because his girlfriend had tested positive for COVID and was very sick. My employer didn't tell me about that, so that was fun. Anyways, but he had a negative test, so we're like, okay, well, I think we're good. And so we go back to work and whatever. The next day comes around and I was coughing pretty bad. And he asked me at one point, like, are you sick? And I didn't really think I was because I've been standing around in the cold for 2 weeks. So I just thought I was congested. And Thursday, it was not good. I didn't get much sleep. I literally texted my boss at about 6 a.m. because because I was up from just being so miserable.
Yeah.
And he told me not to come in. And then I went to try to get tests, but I'm symptomatic. So I can't go get a rapid test. So I had to just get a normal one, and now I am waiting till at the most Sunday, I think. They said 24, 48 to see whether or not I can go back to work on Monday or not.
I know
And I missed Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, I know
So
the non-rapid tests down here for like the because there's a spot by there's a water park called Water World here in Colorado. There's a site just outside of that. There's another site that's up by Front Range Community College. Both of those are by I think Mako Medical, and it's up to 78 hours for the results. So it could be 3 days or I think it's 70,
yeah,
I don't know. Something
I
72,
think that's a
48, 72.
possibility.
Yeah.
I think the 48 are just the people trying to be salesmen about it.
Yeah. So
I think 72 hours is certainly possible.
yeah, so that's the time frame to know for those guys, and then and I'm curious because we haven't talked about it. With you being up all night, what was keeping you up?
It was really so it wasn't a pure up all night. It was
Yeah,
just my sleep was so intermittent. I was maybe getting an hour and a
tossing and
half at a
turning.
time,
Yeah,
and it was just like this is pointless. Like I'm gonna get nothing from this. So I just kind of suffered for a while. Hit 6 a.m. and I was like, yeah, even if I wanted to try to tough this out, this is just stupid. Like my job's dangerous. I can't go in with no sleep, sick
yeah.
as a dog.
Well,
So
is it you were just tossing and turning like you were restless the whole night, or
no, like I could get to sleep, but then I would wake up and like I'd be like choking on my congestion and like needing to
ah,
cough. They would
okay.
just keep jarring me awake.
Yeah, for me, my experience, my I didn't have much of an issue with congestion stuff. Like even though I had runny nose and I would say I'm still a little bit stuffy, the part that woke me up a couple of times was again going back to I just have ridiculous chills the whole time. Um, Today they've been not so bad, but to be fair, like I took a really warm shower and I try to exercise to like get the blood flowing a little bit.
Yeah, it's some
Temperature
oxidization
wise,
going.
it's warmer than it normally is for my room. But the night that I ended up just like texting my boss and saying, yeah, I'm gonna be sick. Um, it was honestly kind of like how it felt when I got the second shot for the vaccine, where I was just chills the whole way through, like shaking underneath covers, and normally I run
Jeez.
on the warmer side. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
rough, but is it COVID? Who knows?
Well, and
That's the part that
now
sucks.
I of course am not a medical doctor, and I'd like to
Yeah,
point out I did in
me
fact
neither.
cancel my New Year's plan when I
Yeah,
didn't know whether or not I had COVID. I don't actually think I have COVID because I've been taking Tylenol cold and flu, and that's helped a ton.
yeah.
It's not perfect still, but I'm like pretty sure they would have figured that out by now if it was a good use for COVID. So
No,
I
that's a
think
good
I'm
point.
safe, but
Yeah,
obviously for precaution's sakes, I'm not
no,
going
and
anywhere or
I'm in
anything.
the same boat. I had plans to visit a DU Dungeons and Dragons uh,
Yeah.
friend's house for New Year's, and
Nice.
I ended up not going, and I think they ended up canceling their plans altogether. Whether that's related or if that's because there are some other people in my household that were also going to go, because it was myself and there were some tentatives for some of my roommates. We ended up just staying at the house, which for me, I've been quarantined in my room So I'm not even leaving my room all that much. And when I do leave, I'm wearing a mask through the rest of the house, and I'm usually wrapped up in a robe to stay warm and stay as like non-surface contact with things as I can, while I go get food from the kitchen and then go back upstairs. But yesterday, they ended up binging the OG Spider-Man movies, which we can talk about Spider-Man stuff because I think that's a fun topic with with the latest movie.
Just
Um,
to be 100% clear, this is the Sam Raimi ones.
yeah, the Sam Raimi's. Yeah, the
Classics.
old Tobey Maguire 2000s, the
When
start
Blu-ray was
of
a new idea.
yeah yeah. God, a new idea. DVDs were still a new idea when I think the first Spider-Man came out because that was what 2002. God,
I don't know. I
what
feel
a
like we had
throwback.
DVDs before that. Maybe I'm off. Either way, um, God, those I for the longest time really crapped on those movies, and now I'm like, man, they're just the best.
They're
I
good.
just, oh, there's something about it. Like the third one, pretty weird, but
Yeah,
God, I could watch it over and over and over again.
yeah. We can talk
Like,
about that a bit more in a bit, but um, other news of the week. Uh, just shy of her 100th birthday. Some people are claiming, if you include leap days, uh, that she is over 100, but Betty White passed away just on the edge of reaching 2022 and her 100th birthday. Um, for me, like, I do think that's it is a loss, but I can't speak much to her legacy as a person. I feel like that's something where she's known for doing a lot of stuff and having all these massive contributions to film and to media and really pushing boundaries. And all I know her is the fun, sassy old lady in like the Snickers commercial, or like she'll appear in things like Community and stuff like that. And it's a weird feeling, uh, like because I feel like that's something where my parents probably have a much greater appreciation, and that's not to say that I don't appreciate her. I do think Betty White is pretty awesome, and it's sad to see her go, especially because it just feels like 2021 saying, oh, you know what, here, let me check this box really quick
yeah,
as an extra way to anger the
let
year
me just
in
let me just
memory.
kill those Betty White jokes for you.
Yeah. Gosh, but yeah, Connor, what do you think?
Um, well, and it's a lot like you said. Like I know Betty White as Betty White. Like Betty White was the character that I always saw her playing. Like whether or not that's really who she was or whatever. Like I never
Yeah,
saw her in Golden Girls or anything. So like, but I'm obviously we're much worse off without her around. You know, she was just a funny person in general, and it sucks that anybody has to die,
yeah,
irregardless of any of that. But
yeah.
yeah,
From
2021's little last little fuck you to everybody else. But you know.
yep,
Betty
nope.
White did a lot. She fought through some serious things, you know, like thinking about it. I Jordan shared with me a post that talked about her being successful in a time where there was a lot holding her back in her profession, like entertainment. Just
Oh
like a
yeah.
lot of things was very
Well, I
much a
mean,
man's world,
she's
and
approaching 100 years old. In
yeah,
like, I would say the last 20 years we've gotten a lot better with uh,
yeah,
equality and the rise of feminism as far as guys and gals, and at this
yeah.
point even gender neutral or trans and so on and so forth. I think that's something that has progressed very well in the last
Well,
10,
and
much
she
less 20
witnessed
years.
like
Like she's
all
been
of that
around.
up
Yeah.
until now.
I mean, God, imagine just going back 50 years. It's a night and day difference because you go back to
Oh
like
yeah,
the 80s and 70s, and it's something where just a woman writing or producing things is almost unheard of.
yeah. Like what are you
Like,
talking about?
yeah, that's
Unless it's like a play, maybe
yeah, and
here or there.
that's crazy to think about. Like having 100 years of not just progress, but uh, contribution to that progress too.
Yeah,
I mean, it really is
absolutely.
quite breathtaking. Um, I
Well,
will
and
say,
almost
yeah,
in that regard, you could almost say she's a bit of a Mary Shelley, and just that like
Mm.
She just did a lot in a place where women didn't have much to do.
Yeah.
That's very inspiring.
Yeah. And I think with her legacy, I with the recent news and then like diving a little bit into it, hopefully that's something where we get to see more come out about like what she contributed, exactly how much she was involved with
Yeah,
it. I'm not the person to make that kind of a narrative,
no,
but man, I think that's
I
something that would be pretty cool.
I really like that's a good idea is to maybe look into this more as a time of remembrance or getting familiar with somebody who
Yeah,
you always kind of passively knew. That's a good way to look at it. Hopefully that is something that comes out of that. I know
yeah,
I'll certainly be going through IMDb and just checking some stuff out.
yeah.
Still got a Sunday to go, so
I mean, that's something
it's a
that
good idea.
just in terms of the weekend. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think I went through a very similar process with Michael Jackson and with Robin Williams, because
Mm,
with Michael Jackson, I started dancing kind of in the aftermath of his passing,
yeah,
and then with Robin Williams, that was I felt like that was a little bit more personal because it was seeing the struggles with mental health that he went through. I know that I had a bout with depression in high school and going into college that I really struggled with. That was something that it it was both saddening to hear, but also uh, it kind of levels the playing field. Like everybody has their own problems, and thankfully with Betty White, there wasn't any like mental health shenanigans. It wasn't COVID related. It just seems like it's natural causes, and it was kind of unexpected, but she was old kind of thing,
yeah,
which is good. That's
happens to the best of them.
yeah, and that's probably the best way to go. Is it's just yeah, and she's gone. Like
Go to sleep and just don't wake up one day.
yeah, yeah. Um, so that's something that thankfully I would say we're kind of blessed in that
Totally.
regard.
Well, and
Um,
I mean, we had her for 99 years. That is
yeah,
some kind of
yeah,
like she's good. Like I don't know what else she would really have left to do at some point. So like if you had to go out,
yeah. And in the last couple of weeks, it's something where she's been on record or on statement saying that she's thankful that she's in good health and whatnot. And that's something that comparing it to I guess another old person that I know that passed away was Stan Lee. With his passing, his I want to say it was his wife died the year before or something like that. And once that happened, he had a little bit more of a spiral in terms of his health.
yeah, that definitely that can't help.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's
No.
no way.
No. Grief takes a toll on the body.
Uh, well, and even in little ways, right? Like maybe his eating did just get worse. He was thinking about other things. He didn't have that other person around to prod him as much, maybe. And,
Yeah.
it's just little contributions, right? Like it's not like it was just that, but
No.
just the little
Absolutely.
things.
Absolutely. And uh, I guess on a slightly more personal tangent, that's something that I'm kind of hoping with bated breath that my Papa Joe gets better because in his case, I mean he's in the 80s and 90s range. That's something where without going into too much detail, it's something where he's been in and out of the hospital a lot recently. Right now, it's something where like his body just doesn't absorb nutrients. So without my great grandma like pressing and pestering him, um, that's something that is a little bit more concerning. Like we're like
Mm,
counting months almost at this point
yeah.
to see how it goes and how he's feeling and what he's doing. Right now, it seems like
Mm,
he's okay. He doesn't look great, but
yeah.
he's okay.
Well, and it's hard because it's like, is he gonna get better from this, or is this just kind of the way it is now? It's always the rough thing with older
Yeah.
people, It's like it seems like just more and more gets stacked on their shoulders as time goes on.
Yep. Yep. Well,
My
mortality.
uh my dad's dad is currently going through a kidney cancer treatment. He got his last one, so we're waiting the next couple of weeks to see what's up with that, if it took and went well. But Yeah,
Fun topic.
as with a lot of. Yeah, well,
It's important though.
it is, and it's unfortunate, but that's it. It also goes to show that's why you really need to appreciate people while they're around.
Yeah, and not just people like whatever privilege. I mean,
True.
if we go by the fire
Hey,
stuff, I appreciate what you got because
yeah,
it might be gone tomorrow.
even where you live, I loved Colorado, and then now I've been in Canada for 7 years, won't always be the same.
Yeah, come back.
Everything can be taken away. I am.
Get
Eh,
your citizenship and then come back. That way you can go back and forth as
yeah.
much as you want.
I I don't think that'll be a huge issue, to be honest. I mean, it'd be
Fair.
nice to be able to just fly into like Vancouver and some spots, I suppose.
Yeah,
Because
just
there's still parts of Canada I want to see. I'm just like not about here anymore.
yeah. How much in Canada have you done? Like what's the furthest you traveled? What's the
See,
coolest place you've
and
traveled?
that's exactly the thing. Like I've done very little of it because so much of my time has been like when I got up here, it was about getting school back on track. I didn't have a
Mhm.
lot of time, and I did a lot around where I am because,
Yeah.
but like literally the furthest I've traveled is to Fort McMurray, but that was for work. I worked in Fort McMurray. A lot of people probably don't know, but there's a bunch of
Nope.
oil. It's called oil sands up there.
Hmm.
It's this thing. It's called bitumen. You can get out of the sand, and people can make kind of artificial oil out of it. So
Huh.
I was working on a crew that was building facilities for the employees that will work at the actual facilities that will mine and refine all that stuff. And a
Okay.
lot of people do up here. It's either way, but
Yeah.
that's really the farthest I've gone. There is a lot of really great scenery up there. Like I did go out one time with a guy who was like a hunting guide and just like went on like a little hike basically, and it's another world up there,
Is it
depending where you are.
something
Like
like almost out of Skyrim type of thing where it's just cold and mountains and forests and
yeah, like
it's
frozen taiga or
ooh,
tundra, I should say, not taiga.
yeah.
Or tundra, but like it's just like the color, the way like sunrises look up there when it's out and cold, and or just what does live there. It's just those. It's those. You see them a lot, and I guess like car commercials, but like those kind of like really crazy landscapes that just they don't seem worldly.
Where it's not quite glacial but approaching that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely. Depends on the time of year. Sometimes a year
Yeah.
it may as well be glacial.
No, that's
Yeah,
that's very fair, especially if it's been
or
snowing
like
or not.
a cool one was I went to see an ice breaking, and basically what that is over time the rivers will freeze up and the ice will kind of start to crack and break, and it's really cool because the pads get so big and there's so much force from the ice cracking that they start to like tip each other, and so you'll see like I'm not kidding like probably like a 60-foot by 70-foot piece like huge chunk of ice go end over end like from like the
Just
short side
straight
come over,
vertical.
yeah, then come down, smack the other, and start the whole process over again, all the way down a river.
And it just
It's
snakes up the
insane.
chain. That's crazy.
Yeah. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean watch ice melt? But it's something if it's cool.
It ain't just melting. It's doing its own little like
Yeah.
ecosystem thing. It's
Yeah.
reacting.
It's just this funny little thing, but like, man, it is so entertaining to watch.
Is it something where it's like in a lot of movies, anytime ice breaks, it's like this deep rumble. Does it do that for rivers breaking up like that, or is it
No, you can definitely hear it. It's just like a really loud crack.
like crackly? Okay.
Yeah, and it'll be a lot of as it like slowly gets going more and more, but
Okay. Cool. That's fun to know. I know with what travel I've done. I mean, I was part of a dance troupe that has been all around the country, called Silhouettes, and they've gone as far as international. I've only done international. I've only done one international show with them in Mexico. Most of this was while I was in high school, but since high school it's kind of been off and on. I'll join them for a couple of shows here, a couple of shows there. We've been as far as, I mean, I think the furthest they've traveled is Warsaw, Poland, if I'm right,
jeez.
something like that. I know they spent like a month in Germany, or not a month. It was like 3 or 4 months, something like that. I mean, lots of periods of time international, and then I think our director trained people in Tokyo. Anyway, that's beside the point. For what travel I've done with them, I mean, we've really been all over the U.S. We've been to California a bunch. We've been to more recently, we're in Vegas and Texas. Or not Vegas. We were in Nevada, in Reno,
Hmm.
actually.
Ah,
But I mean, Reno's like a smaller Texas. You live the entire time in a casino. Um,
the biggest little city.
yeah, it was kind of fun. Especially because like I'm an actual adult. I can go around. Most of the people in the dance troupe, they're underage because they're people in like high school, middle school, elementary school. The cast is made up of all
Oof.
different ages and sizes. Um, as an adult, I get to just go around the casino as I want. Did I gamble? No. But I got to go get food. Hey, I didn't
Yeah,
have to plan out anything. That's something that they had to be very cognizant of. Okay, we're doing a food run.
yeah,
Who's where? Keep everyone's head count in line. All that.
yeah.
That's something I
Be
didn't
on the
have to
right
deal with.
path. No
Yeah.
shortcuts.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
Been
Um,
there, been there.
but yeah, I'm trying to think of like what the coolest things I've seen as far as travel stuff goes. Um, Mexico was pretty fun. We performed at a like Five Diamond Resort. This was not where my family went for for this recent trip. We did go to a nice like all inclusive resort.
Yeah,
It was very beautiful. It was very warm. It was very rainy, but even though it rained, no one cared because it's still warm as heck and
yeah.
humid.
It's like a
Oh my
shower.
gosh, yeah, it really was. I mean, even as late as like 2 o'clock in the night, which I ended up dancing as far. I mean, it felt like it was straight out of a movie. Like, gosh, I'm trying to think of one of those
And
dance
we
movies.
were just dancing in the dark. Get terrified.
um, but
KK.
yeah, that was a lot of fun. I think some of the coolest things I've seen were, uh, funnily enough, going to Wisconsin. We've been to Wisconsin a couple of times, but one of them was in Oshkosh, and it was
Gosh.
yeah Oshkosh Magosh. It was the Experimental Aircraft Association hosts Air Venture, I think is what it's called. It's the world's
Huh.
largest plane gathering convention, whatever you want to call it. Literally, this is one of the things where people will just fly up to the location, they'll park their plane and set up a tent right next to it, and that's where they are for like the entire time.
Hmm.
It's I can't even like I don't even know how to describe how many different planes all over the place. And I mean, it's something where naturally there's a little bit of a museum aspect of it. You get to see like the history of planes, but um, one of the things that we got to do was we got to fly in a like still functional running or recreated, I'm not sure, like 1920s plane that they have for people, where it's literally just a seat that's like bolted to the floor, and you just go and it just rattles the whole way up and down. I
Oh yeah.
mean, not even as far advanced as like World War I bombers. It's before that point, and these were apparently passenger planes that people could take to get to and from, like in the 1920s, and or no, not the 1920s. It'd be before that. I think they were still around in the 20s though, because
Hmm.
1910s is when we got the like here's the two lines of like fabric, and that's what's it, where it's basically a bicycle
Yeah.
but with an engine. Like it's a little bit above that. That's what we were flying in. It was weird, it was crazy. Stuff like that. um so yeah, that was a fun tangent.
I
Yeah.
I do miss going to the air show. There was an air show every year in Colorado. I missed going to. It was very
Yeah.
cool. I
Yeah.
got to ride in a B-15 at one of those. It was very fun.
No, it's at the Rocky Mountain Airport, which is
I yeah.
it's like halfway between Boulder and Denver for people that aren't from Colorado. Um, That's actually that's really close by to where all the fires and stuff were. I'm pretty sure that the airport made it just fine. It was a little bit
Yeah,
north of that, but it was definitely in like the evacuation area for sure.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that was not fun.
Yeah. Oh, so uh, that's a lot of tangents about our
I bet.
personal lives and
Go ahead.
fun stories and stuff. Uh, if we want, we can move on to more entertainment type stuff. Because I know you wanted to talk about Dune,
I
which has
do.
come out, and that was really fun. I got to see that a few weeks back. So Connor, take it away.
So of course, the new Dune movie, very cool. The old one by David Cage, not the best done thing in the world. I love David Cage. I'm a David Cage man myself, but and I love it for what it is. But this more recent one, I definitely think um could be better. I'm a little weirded out by they're really pushing the whole trilogy thing, and after The Hobbit, I'm a little apprehensive of things doing that.
Yeah,
Like I'm like, this is our first date, I don't need to get pregnant right now, all right? Like let's just see how things go.
yeah,
It's a little weird to me right when they start off, but I still really liked the movie. I thought the casting was amazing. I really liked everybody in it. I thought Jason Momoa
I
was
thought he
looking a
did a.
little thick.
I thought he was like a surprisingly good cast. I didn't think he'd
Oh
do
yeah.
as well as he did. He was really like interesting to watch.
I think he is really good for that character, Duncan Idaho. Like I think he is perfect
Yeah,
for that. Like I was very excited to see that's who was playing Duncan Idaho when I saw the trailer. that that is literally my favorite character in Dune, so it was also just cool to see Momoa playing him.
yeah. No, that's fair. I feel
Never
like
hurts.
I felt like that first. I say first, the most recent Dune movie, the first of multiple that they've planned out. Um, I have the same hesitancy about if they extend it into a trilogy or if they're going to say one or two or one, two, and three. Like I feel
Yeah.
like with how this first movie went, it is setting it itself up so that it's more like a part one, part two, part three, rather than it being here's the first movie, here's the second movie, here's the third movie. Like I felt like there was a
Yeah.
lot of just hey, this is Dune. Welcome to this world. Here's the world building of
Oh
it.
yeah.
Here's some of the politics of it, and we'll get to like bigger plot points later. But
Yeah.
this
It
is
took its
just all
time.
set up, yeah. And I think that's something that is for better or for worse. I do think it was masterfully crafted. Like I think it's a
Yeah.
gorgeous movie.
Oh my God.
Um, some of the costuming is a little bit boring, but I don't necessarily think that that's
I do
out of
agree.
character for it because it is, I would say, a little bit post-apocalyptic esque. Like it's not properly a post-apocalyptic, like it ain't no Mad Max or any zombie movie, but I think it
It's
it gives
dipping
off
in
that
a
air.
similar well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Where it's no resources are rare, but more importantly, like it's all about the
Well,
spice.
and a lot of that too is just from Mad Max, gas is what's valuable
Yeah,
and that's just Dune's version of gas, right?
yeah. No, that's a good
So it's like
point.
it's definitely there.
Um, do you
And I
think because I haven't seen a lot of the the older movie. I've seen clips. I've seen there's a YouTube channel Corridor Digital that talks about like special effects and whatnot. Do you think it was a good choice, or maybe not? I don't know if I want to use that word, but what do you think about the choice of what they kept from the original movie and what they didn't? The one thing that I can think of is like seeing the weird space snail slug thingy using spice and like shooting energy beams in the old one. I both really would love to see what a modern interpretation of that would be, but I also think the movie might be better without it.
Yeah. And this one's really going for the like we're loyal to the books thing. So like Obviously there was some stuff they chose, like the Navigator wasn't featured nearly as much,
Yeah.
in that regard. That's what that big thing is called for anyone who's interested for some reason. But I think what they put in this one works really well as they're going to be doing more movies because they didn't even really get through the first book.
Yeah.
Like the actual original Dune movie actually gets further towards, I think they get to the end of the first book in the original one, in the David Cage one. This
Hmm.
one maybe got about half, like more than half probably way through
Yeah.
of the actual
Really
first book.
taking their
So
time with it.
yeah, introducing things slow because like where this one ends, the other movie still probably has like 30-45 minutes to go.
Yeah. Um, do you think with the current movie, because to your point, you're saying that they're trying to stick a little bit closer to the books. Um, do
Which they're
you
doing well at.
think do you think that's something where they are keeping a good pace with it? Because you have more Dune knowledge than I do.
There's just a lot that goes on in the first book, and
Yeah.
it's a little bit easier, I think, to write it out than to put it all into like a 2 hour movie. So I'm happy we get to see everything because I think that's usually most people's complaint with movies from about books
Yeah, book
or inspired by
adaptations.
books.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to see what they can do, but they do need to get to it at some point. So
Yeah.
like I don't know if people are going to stick around for many more movies if we're still going through the first book after like 3 parts. It's like that might get a bit much for other people. I'm down. I'm here for it, but we'll
Because
see.
I think as a more casual Dune goer, uh, I was starting to get lost a little bit. Not in terms of like what's going on, but just my interest in it started to fade as it went along because I was just like, oh my gosh, this movie is still going. That's kind
Yeah,
of how I started to
yeah.
feel.
Well,
And I wasn't sure if that's a pacing thing, if that's how it was made, or if that's no, they're really like they're doing a good job of taking their time and using everything from the books, and I just don't have that same appreciation of it.
and going along with they're trying to stick to the books. Dune is a really crunchy series. They're
Yeah,
not all the longest books in the world. Like they're mostly novellas.
yeah,
They're not like huge novels or anything, but they're crunchy. There's a lot of talking about philosophy and how things relate to that. And it takes me like I've had to reread the third book multiple times because I'm still like not really getting it on some spots. Like I'll get into the fourth book and be like, wait a minute, what? And then I have to like go back to like the second or third book and like try to reread all this stuff because it's just a lot to
yeah.
get into. So
It's
it's
a lot
like,
of processing and reprocessing and
yeah,
reforming your opinion after like going through it again. And
yeah, and the first book isn't the most chunky in the world because, like you said, it establishes the world more. It's more the fantastical elements,
yeah,
but even it still has a lot of like just a lot in it. Like everything, like it's hard to remember all the characters even because they some of them have kind of like weird names, some of them don't. You've got to remember Harkonnens versus Atreides. You've
yeah,
got the God. You've got the Emperor of everything, but you don't even really see him. But you still have to keep in mind there's like a bigger Imperium
there's always a
uh,
bigger fish.
going on. Yeah, going on. Like there's other planets that have their own problems. Like Arrakis is huge, obviously, because that's where the
Hmm.
spice comes from. But there are other people millions of miles away dealing with their own issues, fighting their own wars too. So
Yeah,
it's a lot to even get in one movie. And if you watch it in theaters, if you get a chance to watch it when it comes out digitally, it's probably a good idea.
it's
Obviously, some people may not be into that, but
so that's
that's to them.
actually how I ended up watching it. Is it's on HBO Max. So it
Yes,
was myself and my
I
roommates. We got
forgot
to
about
watch it
that.
that way. Yeah, 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 yeah. So,
Uh,
mm,
would you say you were like how was your experience at home with it? Because that is one thing. Like more of the reason I didn't do that was just because I'm like, I want to go see it in a theater.
so I felt like it was fine watching it at home. I will say some of it was really dark. Like, in when I say that, I mean visually. Like, the brightness level was turned down all the way type of dark. It was hard to see what was going on with like what just naturally ambient light we had, because we didn't shut off all the lights throughout the entire house type of thing. That was something that was a little bit difficult, that I think might have been better in the theater. And I feel like having it in the theater, like, yes, it's a much bigger screen. You get to see the more expansive environment aspects of it, because I think a lot of that movie was the set dressings, the landscaping involved.
Oh yeah.
But with the I think the biggest loss would have probably been for sound design, because I feel like
Yeah,
that movie would benefit a lot from like the rumble that you get in a theater, as like the
definitely.
sheets like the seats shake it just a little bit.
Yeah.
That was something that we didn't like crank it that loud. We don't have an extensive sound system here at home, but overall, I mean, that was something where I was almost thankful I watched it at home and not in the theater, because I didn't feel like I was constrained to my seat. Like I could still
That
hear
is
it
fair.
if I like got up to go get a drink and then sit back down to continue watching. That's
Do you get
something
that
that,
nice comfort
yeah,
ability
yeah, exactly.
being
And I
in your
think
own
with a
place?
with just how long that movie like was and feels, I think that's something that going to a theater that would have hurt it is the ability of just being able to sit there and watch it.
We definitely picked we went to Calgary to go to the ultra immersive theater they have where like
Ooh,
the seats have rumblers and stuff and they're
oh yeah,
super comfy. So like that was a big consideration for me was like if we're doing this, we're doing it. We
we're
need to
going
this is a
in.
3 hour movie because my dad's like this is 3 hours. I'm like I know we're in the nice theater. It's got the super rumble. The seats are
Yeah,
super good. I've watched in that theater many times. I love the seats. So I was like I
we're
had it all
picking the
prepped.
creme de la creme.
Yeah, I just had a bottle of water. I didn't drink it until about halfway through. I made sure I went to the bathroom before I went in. There was a lot of tactics that were put into this.
Yeah,
So I can definitely empathize with the yeah, I'll watch it on HBO Max and just fucking chill.
yeah, and the other thing that's kind of nice with it is, we can pause it and start it if we were,
Yeah. Or go back if you miss some if
yeah,
everyone's like, what?
yeah, if we're all just sitting there like, hold on a second, what just happened?
Which
I
is
missed something.
great in Dune. That is a nicety to have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, goodness, going back to the lighting situation, because some of those scenes are so visually dark
Oh
that,
yeah.
just having a
Part of
little bit
that
of
may have just
reflective,
been your
yeah, like that's something that's kind of on us. Like we could have like fully turned off everything from the start to like sit ourselves in and
mm,
get immersed in the experience, but we had a couple of
yeah.
lights on, and that it
That's
like trying to translate what was going on in screen, because there was some pretty good action like scattered
oh yeah.
throughout, and
And
again
it
going
is
back to the
just dark
visuals,
sometimes.
yeah, just visually it's really hard to see.
Yeah,
um
like descent levels almost.
so anybody who hasn't seen Dune, watch it in a dark room.
Yeah. You got
Because
blackout curtains, that's good.
yeah, there you go. Make sure that the backlight on the TV, if you have
Yeah.
backlight setting, crank that to max. Maybe turn up the brightness like a couple
An
more dials than
OLED
you normally
TV,
have.
if you know someone with an OLED TV, that would go really well. You'd get the
Yeah.
really crisp blacks, but it'd
Ooh.
still look good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, uh Dune, yeah, Dune was pretty good. Um as a Star Wars fan, I'm very happy with the kind of pacing that it had, and while I do think that it stretched it a little bit, this is a new universe that we're getting introduced to and whatnot. What I think is interesting is how Star Wars has kind of gone in a similar route where it likes to take its time a bit more. There's a lot more on like the landscapes, and you're a small dude in a big picture type thing, because that's very much how
Yeah.
I would say Mandalorian was for those 2 seasons, and what Book of Boba Fett is looking like. I've seen the first episode, uh,
Nice.
and it's been pretty good. Um, some people are upset there isn't a Baby Yoda esque sized reveal in Boba
Yeah.
Fett. at least for the first episode. Because with Mandalorian episode 1, you got one of the bigger shocks, not just to like from a narrative point of view, but from a universe thing. We've never seen a younger version of Yoda that is toddler sized, aged, etc.
Yeah.
Um, that's a big lore decision with bigger implications overall.
Yeah.
That's something that we didn't really get with Boba Fett. If we want, we can talk a little bit more about that. I don't know if you haven't seen that episode, have you?
I have not seen Boba Fett yet.
Okay,
I,
I'll
I
give
don't have Disney
you.
Plus, so I need to steal it. But
Yeah, so we'll touch spoiler territory, but I won't dive into the
yeah,
nitty gritty of it. Um, this first episode of Boba Fett, it kind of feels like okay, let's introduce some of the problems he's going to be dealing with, but more importantly, all right, everybody who asked how Boba Fett got out of the Sarlacc, we're going to have some flashbacks here so we can just get that out of the way.
nice.
So it really does have like him clawing his way out of the sand. He comes across some Tuskens, or he comes across Jawas come across him, take his armor, and then he gets nabbed by Tuskens. Like
Yeah.
that's all of the flashback points of it. Uh, and he spends some time with that. We don't see anything past that though. All of this is in flashback, and it's honestly like half the episode, if not almost maybe more than half. The
Yeah.
other half is in the
It's
quote unquote like current day, and it's him with Fennec Shan, the actress who plays Mulan. I think it's
Oh,
Ming Na Wen is her name.
hmm.
But
I did
it's
not realize that.
oh yeah, fun fact. But it's the assassin lady sniper from Mandalorian. It's the two of them,
Yeah.
like in Jabba's throne, and he's learning how to be a crime lord basically. So he's collecting tribute. He runs into town. They're like talking about how come you weren't like carried in. And he's like, I walk where I please. I don't need to be carried. I use my own 2 feet type of thing. Um, so that was interesting. And then a bunch of guys show up to beat him up. He survives naturally. Um, he gets a little bit beat up, and then a lot of the time spent is him in a back to tank, actually, which
Ah.
I I'm not sure if that's a result of his time being in the Sarlacc. That's what would make the most sense. But with season 2 of The Mandalorian, like we see him wandering around and about on Tatooine. He shows up and kicks a bunch of stormtrooper butt. Like that's something that I'm not necessarily clear on why he's spending a lot of time in the back to tank, or if that's something that is a more recent occurrence. That
Hmm.
part's not quite as clear. To me, it makes sense that he's spending time in the back to tank because of the Sarlacc. It's just that wasn't like explicitly clear, so I'm not sure if like it's more he got hurt or he's just an old bounty hunter that has been through the ringer
Yeah.
multiple times,
That's almost what I was
and
thinking.
like that's the part that I'm sure the rest of the show will go into more detail for. Visually, musically, narratively, it felt very much like Mandalorian, where this is a show that's going to take its time. Here's episode 1. This is just part 1 of a bigger story. We'll get to the rest of the season as those episodes come by.
Eh,
Um, that's something that uh, felt even more prominent with Boba Fett than it did with Mandalorian. Mandalorian's first episode was like, "Hey, big reveal, whoopah!"
Yeah.
Boba Fett's it feels much more set up. Like,
Oh, yeah. Well, and at this point, like they know how many episodes they're gonna have. They know like that kind of stuff. So I'm sure they got to just write exactly what they needed to. They didn't
yeah,
have to set it. They didn't have to be told in 7 pages. It didn't have to be long. They just did exactly what they needed.
yeah. I think that's something that the uh, the Star Wars show folks are given more leeway than the movies had, and for the better.
Thank God.
Yeah, the movies were rough.
We didn't go to the Call of Duty timeline of just crank it out year after
Yeah,
year,
yeah, no,
run it
oh.
into the ground.
I'm not gonna start talking about the sequel movies because I can rant about Rise of Skywalker in particular for hours
I,
on end. If you want to hear that, let us know. But
I
my
will
goodness,
say I don't just hate the sequels totally. I like a lot of the characters. I think
there
there's
are
some
good
cool
moments,
stuff in
there are
there.
good things, there are good ideas, but ooh,
Yes,
the
good
execution.
parts.
I think one of my
Yes.
favorite things is there's a TikTok that I saw where someone went, J.J. Abrams would be terrible at improv because the whole idea of improv is yes and you never want to use no but or no actually. And that's
Yeah.
the entirety of Rise of Skywalker with
Yeah.
respects to Last Jedi, which I actually
To
really like Last Jedi. As weirdly
to be
controversial of
fair,
opinion that is.
they kind of fucked him when they killed Snoke. That made it a little annoying
Yeah, but it
because
made
he had
Last
to do
Jedi
that.
cool.
Yeah,
No,
I just that's kind of why we ended up with Palpatine
yeah.
again. So it's like,
Well,
well,
here's this
I
will be
guess he
my
could have done
last
something
2 cents
else.
on it. Um,
Yeah.
I think the sequel trilogy would have worked better as a sequel duology if you had Force Awakens and Last Jedi with minor tweaks, or you had Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker with minor tweaks. You can't have all three because all three of
Hmm.
them doesn't work very well.
Just kind of yeah. To be either way, there's your little preview of our
Yeah, preview of Jordan
sequel
ranting.
stock.
I could. Oh, anyway. Um, what other things are there? Marvel's doing a lot of stuff. Marvel just had the
Yeah.
new Hawkeye show wrapped up. That was pretty fun. I like that a lot. The new
I am kind of on the
Spider-Man.
clips train of that, but oh my freaking god, that is, uh, it's so funny. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I'm glad he's finally getting a chance because I don't know his name, but I just think he's a very funny guy. I've
Oh,
seen him in a
the
bunch of
actor
just random
Jeremy
things.
Renner.
Yeah, yeah, Jeremy Renner, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's getting his shot. I always felt like Hawkeye always gets the short end of the stick for no reason
No,
because
that's
he is cool.
yeah.
Like I don't know why everyone hated Hawkeye all of a sudden. Like he's always
I
been a
I never
solid B
hated
tier
him.
hero.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever
Well,
hated
it's more
him,
just
but
they're
he
like,
just
oh,
never
he
gets
just
his
sucks, and
limelight.
it's like, no, he's cool. He's got like cool arrows. He does a
Yeah.
lot.
I think that's more like the movies hate Hawkeye more than the people watching
Well,
Hawkeye hate
but like
Hawkeye.
that was a turn up. Like in like I used to play Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Sure.
Hawkeye's in that.
Yeah.
Everybody loved Hawkeye. He was a good character. Like he was
Yeah.
cool. He was in a lot of the animated shows. Like he wasn't Thor or anything, but
Yeah.
it was Hawkeye. You gotta have Hawkeye around. And then everyone was like, oh, he's so lame. And I'm like, freaking casual MCU fans, get out of here. You just don't know. But
Yeah.
either
I
way, I'm
think
glad that's he's got his chance to right that wrong.
yeah, and I think that Hawkeye is more uh I want to say he overlaps a little bit with Tony Stark in that he's a little bit more sarcastic, snarky, witty
Yes.
in like comics and even other media like the TV shows. I imagine with the video games as well. That's
It's
something
like
that I
Iron
don't
Man
think.
on even harder mode.
Yeah, and I think with the movies, if people don't like Hawkeye, I think that's a little bit more of
It's more like
they.
the idea. I don't think anyone likes dislike because I think Jeremy Renner's good. Like that's why they keep
Yeah,
bringing him back, right?
yeah,
People just like to give him shit a lot. Like they treat him like he's Aquaman, and it's like, well, that's no. He's a very competent hero. He does a lot in the comics. He's
yeah.
like, no, he's quite good
And
actually.
I think that's what this show, what the Hawkeye show has really done well
Yeah,
is show that no, this dude is
glad to hear
a
that.
superhero in that what he's able to accomplish is insane. I mean, with all the different trick arrows, and yes, like he has to go
Oh
and
yeah,
get the trick arrows again. It's not a
but
limited
he can like
resource. That's kind
improvise
of
but
yeah.
like
I mean, it's very much like with Iron Man, like his original arc reactor that he
yeah,
uses in the
that's a
first
great
movie.
example.
Yeah, like he has only so much power that he's able to use
Yeah.
until his batteries run
Well,
out. And
Yeah,
as time
he has to
has
make
gone
a whole new
along,
element just to get that
just
thing
to
going
keep it going.
permanently.
Yeah, and that's something that he's able to overcome as time has gone along. I just don't think Hawkeye has had that much of a chance, and hopefully we'll see more of that kind of fun aspect with Kate Bishop, who's the new character in the show. She's in the comics, of course. Um,
Yeah,
Haley Steinfeld is the actress who plays her, and my God, she crushed it. Um, I will say I have a little
Miss
bit of a
Steinfeld,
bias.
please marry me, please.
Yeah, because like,
I'll be
God
your
dang it,
dog.
Haley is
Sorry,
fantastic.
I know. Let's get
Um,
to it.
no, I mean I'm in the same boat. Like she's been around for a while. I mean she was in the Pitch Perfect
Oh,
movie. She's in Bumblebee.
I know.
She voices
I'm
Gwen
just.
Stacy in the
I
Spider
did
Verse
not know
movie.
that.
Oh yeah, she's Gwen Stacy. Yeah,
Huh.
she's it's fantastic. Um, so anyway, she crushed it here. Thank goodness. Because I do not mind seeing more of her, and in fact, I think with her and Jeremy Renner, between the two of them in the show, as well as just how the show went about, I honestly think that I've had the most enjoyment from any Marvel show. At least like the Disney Plus run of Marvel shows. I
Yeah.
think I've had the most enjoyment out of the Hawkeye show than any of the others. That's and I think Loki is
Put that
probably
on
the
my
most
list.
surprising of that because I did like Loki a
Yeah.
lot. Um,
Wow.
yeah, WandaVision was pretty fun, but I feel like
Loved it.
the the ending of WandaVision was cool, but felt a little bit disconnected from the rest of the show. I'd say the same of Loki, but Loki's more zany. And then
Mm.
with Falcon and Winter Soldier, or Captain America and Winter Soldier Mark II, um,
Yeah.
I think with that, it
I just don't care about Captain America stuff. I just
eh,
like all of it. I was just like,
I
eh.
my problem with it is it just felt boring. Like I wanted more back and forth between uh Sam and Bucky, and I don't think we got enough of that
That's
fun
the problem
aspect.
though, right? It's like
Yeah,
he's a little hard to get to do that in a series these days. Pretty expensive.
that's true. That's
It's
fair.
kind of the unfortunate part. That's kind of the hard part with these series, right?
Yeah. Well, my the other thing I would say is that it felt like Falcon and Winter Soldier was
Not to downplay these series as something lesser. They're of course not, and I'd love to see him on that series. And I don't think
yeah,
he's above it by any stretch either. It's just he's very expensive. His time costs a lot of money.
Anthony Mackie or
Whoever the guy who plays
Sebastian.
Captain America.
Oh, Chris Evans. Chris Evans ain't.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, he's like
he's
done.
just expensive.
I don't even care about that. I care about Sam Wilson Falcon, like Falcon and
Oh,
Bucky
okay.
interacting.
Sorry.
No, that's what
Sam.
I was
What
talking
am I
about.
on?
Is like
Anyways,
I wish that they
that is
had
fair.
more back and forth with each other, and I don't think they did enough of that. And it felt more like a wannabe Born
Twos.
show, like Born
Mm,
trilogy type thing, where it's all about the
yeah.
action and like there's some political
I
commentary
just.
stuff, but either not a lot or like too much. Like there was a weird balance because I think the message of it was good, but not executed well. And I don't know if they should have done more of that or less of that. Or I would lean towards more. I feel like the action was lackluster in that show, but
Yeah.
I don't know. The stakes
Action's
were
hard,
weird.
man.
Yeah, action's hard.
But for Marvel, it shouldn't be. As I say that,
Yeah, at
like
this
I don't
point.
think they have that excuse.
No, that's a good point. So that's kind of how I feel with that. You know what does have some good action though, and this is like slightly spoiler territory as well. In uh,
We
uh
should just say general slight spoiler territory. Like if you're a
generally
big
is always
spoiler person, just
yeah.
maybe no
maybe
no
maybe
problem.
skip
Go do your
ahead
thing.
like a couple of minutes here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so something that had some really good action was the Netflix like Daredevil series, which, in light of recent news, they've acknowledged Daredevil in some capacity with the most recent Marvel projects. Um,
Well, and
and
he was in Punisher a bunch too.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
that
I
was
mean,
kind of a
well, it's Daredevil, Punisher. I haven't seen Defenders. I've heard it's good. Jessica Jones had some good stuff too. I haven't seen Luke Cage or Iron
yes.
Fist. Goodness, there's so
Oh,
many
you
of
haven't
them.
seen Luke Cage?
No, I haven't. I think I've
I
watched two
really
episodes and
liked Luke
then
Cage.
yeah. Well, I was gonna watch that and Iron Fist, and
I've
like
not seen
I
Iron
think I
Fist
watched
either.
like an episode or two, and then I got busy and never went back to it. Um,
Yeah.
Same thing applies for like the Inhumans. If you remember that being a show,
Nope.
I watched the pilot episode of it again, and it's really bad. It's rough. It's
Oof.
it's hard to watch.
Yeah, I think I might honestly just forgot that one.
That
Like,
was one of the ABC uh,
ooh, yeah,
shows.
hard no
It's
on that.
yeah, it's not Agents of Shield. It's an offshoot ish of Agents of Shield that doesn't acknowledge Agents of Shield. It was weird.
I'm good, homie.
Um,
I'm good.
and they had a limited theatrical release, and I'm just sitting there like, oh God, why? Why would you do that? It was pretty rough. So anyway, the Daredevil action stuff and like the other Netflix series, like those had some
Yes.
really good action, and I don't think that it's too hard to translate that kind of action into something like Falcon and Winter Soldier stuff. Because I think that, to be fair, they are superpowered, but there's some superpowered people in the Netflix shows as well. That's just something where it's like, it feels weird that we don't get to see Falcon and Bucky like really
Well,
kick
and like
butt.
Bucky's just kind of superhuman. Like they're like he can still kick and punch. Like it's not any
Yeah,
more expensive than getting him to fight in anything else.
yeah. You
It's
get
just the
some more
effect that gets
wires.
multiplied, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like,
Instead of a box thrown across the room,
well,
it's he punches through a
yeah,
piece of concrete that's plastered.
yeah. But it's like, what are you not putting money into if not like, I mean, obviously costuming. That's got to be pretty top priority,
That's
obviously.
fair. I will say the
And
costume
you
for
need lights and
Falcon
sound.
at the end of the show, that was pretty cool. I did like that. Like harkening back to the comic version of it.
That, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Actually.
Um
But what are you putting the budget towards if not that? Like,
yeah,
you
I
know what
don't
I mean?
know.
Like that seems like one of those you'd probably want to throw either way.
Maybe it's something where there wasn't I guess another way of maybe looking at it is, does it feel like the action is informing the story, or the action's there and the story is happening, but the action's just kind of thrown in? And I think that's probably more where it leaned in watching that show, is like, oh yeah, we need to have our action scene,
You
rather
know,
than yeah.
I feel like that's one of my problems with, and this is not to derail, but just to draw somebody thinking, that's one of my problems with the prequels a lot of the time. A lot of the action
Mm,
feels kind of thrown in.
that's
Episode
a good
one,
point.
not so bad. Episode one usually has it pretty down well, but past that, there's a lot
Well,
of they fight.
yeah, the in episode 1, the action is actually kind of sparse in that movie,
Yeah,
because
it's very
it's a time
concentrated.
of yeah, it's a time of peace, so you kind of bumble around, which, to be
Yeah,
fair, I think that kills some of the pacing in episode 1 of Star Wars. But it like, you get different kinds of excitement with it, because you
yeah,
get
like
like the
the pod
underwater thing, you
racing
get the
and
pod race, which is fantastic.
the
And
escape
then
sequence at the beginning.
yeah, and then what action there is, there's like just a hint, a smidgen of it when Darth Maul tries to attack them
Yeah,
on Tatooine, and then you
a little
get
preview.
the entirety of the finale of that movie, where Duel of
But
Fates is so good.
I think it was all necessary. There was no filler
Yeah,
action.
yeah.
Everything was written out and tight, in my opinion, for
Meanwhile,
those.
in episode 2, which I think is I'm not gonna say it's my least favorite. That's changed with the sequels, but my least favorite of the prequels, certainly. With episode 2, Attack of the Clones, there's the fighting between Django and Obi-Wan, and I feel like that's something that didn't necessarily have to be there. Or
I
the
will
arena
put
a
it
little bit.
aside because we all wanted to see a
It's
Mandalorian or a
cool.
Jedi
It's
fight more.
cool. Don't get me wrong, but I think it could have been more like how, if we want to just go by episode one's, precedents that we've just set, if we had it so that it's a short engagement, a much shorter one.
Yeah, like maybe the ship chase sequence didn't really like what is like Obi's not a
Yeah,
bad pilot or anything, but that's not really what
yeah,
I was going there for.
yeah. And having it so that there's a limited interaction on Camino. They leave. He sneaks his way behind them up until Geonosis, and then in the arena they have a rematch. I think that would have been a lot
Yeah.
more satisfying, a lot more cool. I think that's something that is a little bit rough. I will say,
Yeah, they could have had a Batman Bane moment and like been
yeah,
like knocking people out and then looked and be like, "Oh,
yeah. Um,
it's you."
episode three is pretty good. I don't know what action I would take out of episode three, because the fight with Count Dooku, I think that's necessary, and it
Yes.
informs the narrative really well, because it's outright like, no, here's Anakin both improving and slowly sliding down the dark side.
Yep.
Um,
Getting those dark side points.
if there were to be an unnecessary fight, I hate saying it, but I'd either say Yoda and Palpatine is unnecessary, or I'd say Grievous and Obi-Wan, and that hurts. Like, I don't want to get rid of either of those fights. Um,
I wouldn't say they were filler, personally.
they are, but I like them.
Really? I don't know. I don't. But like they're both going like
I think
Yoda's. I
Palpatine
don't
and
feel like is
Yoda's,
because they're both
yeah.
trying to take each other. They're trying to take out
Actually,
both the Sith at once.
in episode two, Yoda and
And the
Dooku,
Master goes,
that's not as necessary. Dooku still gets
yeah.
away.
That
Um,
was just so we could all be like, Yoda's doing a
oh, Yoda's
thing.
cool. Yeah. Um,
But
but
I don't think Yoda ever needed to do any of that to be impressive. That really wasn't. Like, I
yeah,
don't really care either way.
no, that's fair.
That was just for that
And
Huda
like,
Man, Yoda
how
Man
how
trailer
much
and nothing
cooler
else.
would it be if we didn't see Yoda do a thing in episode two? We get to episode three, and that's the first time that he pulls out his lightsaber. Is like, oh yeah, no, Palpatine needs to go down. I'm taking out all
But,
the stops here.
but, but the trailer, Jordan.
It's
Huda
fair.
Man, Yoda Man.
um, but yeah,
It's
Grievous and
worth
Obi
it.
Wan it's necessary only in so much as the Separatists are defeated. That's really the main
Yes.
contribution, and Obi-Wan is sent away to do it.
Yes.
Everything else, like the Battle of Heroes, I mean, again, the final lightsaber duel with Anakin and Obi-Wan, that's really good. um some of the choreography is a little bit weird in
Yeah.
retrospect, but I
And
appreciate.
that's the they fight thing. It's like
Yeah,
that's kind of what happens when that's all the
yeah,
script says.
yeah. I will say though, I appreciate the time, the effort that went into the prequels fighting a lot more than with the sequels fighting, because the sequel fighting is lackluster,
Yeah.
to
The
say the
Rey
least.
Kylo versus Snoke and all the Red Guards. That's like the one time where I was like, this is fucking really
Yes,
cool.
but
That
it's
was good.
still it.
But Jesus, it took forever to get there. Oh my
Well, the other thing is
God.
fighting with the guards. It feels like it was a choreography issue, because you still get like the the moments where you have the video game problem of, oh, let me attack one person at a time type thing.
Yeah,
And I feel
it's kind of
like,
hard to avoid that, I
yeah,
feel.
and I feel like there, I think in Star Wars you can avoid it reasonably, and that is just you force push half of them, and one of them you didn't quite force push, and
That is
that's the
fair.
one that you have to deal with
That is
now.
fair. Yeah.
Like, I think that,
Having them have to juggle fighting a person while
yeah,
having to force push other people around.
like that would have been really cool, especially since they're working together in that. And I will say the part that I do appreciate with the choreography is Ray's movements are very fluid, flowy, while Ben is very harsh. It's very Jedi
Yeah,
versus Sith without it being explicitly stated as such. I do like
definitely.
that quite a bit. Um, but yeah, uh,
That's
there could
also
have been
somewhat
some.
just Ray's style, right?
Yeah, a little bit. They flop back and forth with that.
Yeah, that's 3 directors for you.
No kidding. Well,
3 different directors for you.
it's it's JJ Ryan Johnson JJ again for the trilogy. Yeah.
Is it? Whatever.
So it's more
Disconnectedly too.
It's more, here's one episode, we're only going to plan this episode out, and then we're just going to wing it from here rather than planning a trilogy.
We're going to just say, nah.
I can't believe they didn't plan it out ahead. All right, I'm done with the sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
I'm sensing a reoccurring bit here.
We're just going to have an episode dedicated to... What are you doing next week? There we go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's about it for today. Overall, Marvel stuff has been pretty fun. I'm excited to see where Boba Fett goes. We have a lot more Star Wars and Marvel things in the future. We didn't even talk about Spider-Man.
Well, and I mean, hey, Robert Patman. That's got a little on the DC side even.
Oh, that's true. There was a new trailer for that. There's the new Doctor Strange. There's all sorts of fun stuff.
I'm very stoked for Robert Patman.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be fun. So, yeah. Connor, if people want more of you, where can they find you? What do you do?
Well, if you want to look at a bunch of really just random and pointless videos, you can go subscribe to my channel at 5string Connor and then be like, why did I do that? But, I'd appreciate it.
If people are familiar with the idea of non-content, I think that's more in line of what kind of stuff you've got. If people want to see...
random repository.
Yeah, yeah. If people want to see more of me, my YouTube is Gillidan for the win, and I have some live streams on there. I have done some Let's Plays way back in the day, and then outside of this podcast, you can find me on all the major things. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, Gillidan for the win. Twitter, it's Gillidan. TikTok, it's Gillidan. I do cooking monstrosities on TikTok. My TikTok's all over the place. I usually watch things.
That's probably the best bang for your buck.
True.
Is the TikTok.
There's some good stuff in there. Like the raspberry vinaigrette and pizza. I like that. That's a good combo.
That still is just good.
It's so
I just did that.
And it's catchy. Everybody should have raspberry vinaigrette and pizza. If for nothing else than saying raspberry vinaigrette and pizza.
Preferably something with tomatoes on it. Oof. That's just nice.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been Narratives and Nonsense. We'll see you next week.
Welcome to the narratocracy.
Bye.